Story 1. I remember piecing it together when my signed by Santa gift tags had handwriting suspiciously similar to my mom's. When I asked her about it, she gave me this long-winded explanation about Santa being really busy so parents have to help out. I figured it was a cover-up, but I was low-key impressed by her commitment to the story. Story 2. I don't really think I ever believed in Santa. Obviously, I don't remember when I was 2 or 3, but as far back as I can recall, I have not believed in that. Story 3. I stayed up on my Nintendo DS with my twin brother on Christmas Eve. We were like 8 or 9. I had my doubts already, but it was like 1 or 2 in the morning, and I heard my parents open the attic and carry all the gifts down while having a conversation. Tears slowly rolled down my face as I discovered the lie. Story 4. I suspected it because of Christmas movies. Even though, in the universe, Santa usually turned out to be real, the fact that so many of the adult characters didn't believe in him made me suspicious. So, I got a friend to ask for Santa's signature, and I did the same. They looked nothing alike, which was proof enough for me. Story 5. Just had that classic moment when my sneaky little cousin figured it out and casually spilled the beans over dinner like it was nothing. Kids have zero chill these days. Story 6. A couple of months after Christmas, my mom slipped up by mentioning she got me a toy while talking about it. Even though I distinctly remembered the tag on the gift said, "From Santa," I still pretended to believe in Santa for years after this because I thought if I let on that I knew, I would get one less present. Story 7. I was in the lunch line getting chicken nuggets when the kid next to me said, "I wish I could give these to Santa." Another kid chimed in, "Oh, don't do that. He's not real. Keep the lunch for yourself." That night, I asked my mom about it, and that's when I got the horrible truth. Story 8. In primary schools, we are asked to buy cheap toys, toothpaste, toothbrushes, and so on, and put them in a shoebox and wrap it up because the school was going to donate it to African school kids. I wondered why Santa didn't give presents to African kids, so I figured it out that way. Story 9. I found out late, around 11 or 12, that my mother really didn't want to let go of the magic. We had a guest bedroom in my house growing up that was rarely used apart from storage, and it turns out it was the hiding place for a lot of Christmas gifts. My brother and I went looking for toys and wound up finding the DVD of Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl, just chilling in a drawer. Christmas morning came, and we got the DVD from Santa. I knew right then that it was probably time to ask the question. Story 10. I don't know how old I was, but all of a sudden I really questioned myself about how it could be possible that a common bunny hid all the eggs and presents at Easter and where they came from. I just asked Mom, and she smiled at me, leaving me knowing that she had something to do with that. A world collapsed for me as I thought a little bit further, ending up realizing that not just the Easter Bunny but also Santa Claus is a lie. It's all a lie. Story 11. When you get older, you start to notice things, and there are always some kids your age that say they don't believe in Santa. At some point, I just asked my parents if he was real, and they said sadly no. I was like, well, that's a bummer, but at least I can help pick my own present now. Story 12. Santa. I worked too hard for these toys for a fat white man to get credit. Mom, who didn't work hard for anything, never really got a chance to believe in him. Story 13. At approximately midnight, we observed rustling and witnessed our father, rather than Santa, positioning gifts beneath the tree. It resembled witnessing a magician disclose his secrets. A combination of disillusionment and admiration for the parental subterfuge. Story 14. My neighbor dressed up as Santa for a block party, so my friend and I stole his toy sack that was filled with towels. My friend hid in a tree and snatched it off his back while I let him buy it, claiming I had a gift. I was about 7, and my attempt at robbery was treated like tomfoolery. Story 15. Saw one of the presents having a price tag. Deduced Santa does have to buy some of his presents for money. Then I calculated wrongly how much he spends every year on presents and compared it to the income of the wealthiest person I knew about, probably also some unreliable data from a newspaper. The only logical solution was there being an undercover international organization of Santas, but it fell apart when my mom got caught in the act. Story 16. I remember it vividly. I was on the school bus home after the first day back following the Christmas holidays. I was listening to all the kids comparing what Santa had brought them, and I suddenly realized that the fact they got loads of fancy stuff and I got hardly anything could only be related to my mother having no money. I would have been 5.5 at the time. I went home and said to my mom, well, look, either Santa is really unfair or it's you who buys the presents, and with hindsight, I really wish I'd just pretended to still believe because the look on my mother's face that day still haunts me nearly 40 years later. Story 17, School. I was talking to a friend about Santa. A much older kid heard me and mocked us for still believing. I was 6. I came home and yelled at my dad, asking why he would ever lie to me. Story 18. I'm autistic, so my dad had to tell me when I entered middle school. That, for some reason, is also when he gave me the sex talk. I caught him watching pornography when I was 7. Story 19. I was 11. My brothers, 9 and 5, were arguing on the front lawn. I was Team Santa is real, and they were Team Santa is your parents. Mom came out to see what the yelling was about, and I played my ace card. You tell them, Mom, Santa's real, right? I tell you, her expression. Story 20. My mom told me when I was 10 after I was teased about already knowing it wasn't real from classmates. I acted like I didn't care when she told me, but deep down I was hurt. Story 21. I had suspected it for a while, but that year Santa left boot marks around the living room with ash from the fireplace. Being a scientifically minded kid, I was suspicious about the ash and wanted to determine what it actually was. So I tasted it. It was bicarbonate of soda. That was enough for me to be confident that Santa wasn't real. I actually didn't say anything for another couple of years, until my mom pulled me aside and told me. I think she suspected I already knew, and I kept my mouth shut for another few years, because my little brother was still young enough to believe. My mom had made the boot marks using my dad's big boots. Story 22. When my wife was about 10, her aunt came up to her and said, I know you know that Santa isn't real, but you need to not let your cousin know. He still believes in Santa. She, in fact, did not know, and this is how she found out. This aunt now has a grandbaby. I keep trying to convince my wife that it's her chance to get payback. Laugh out loud. Story 23. I grew up very religious, so Christmas in my home was always about the birth of Jesus. I do not think I ever even had an opportunity to believe Santa was real. That being said, I am done with all that nonsense now, and can just appreciate Christmas as a time to spend with good food and good friends. Story 24. I figured it out because of the song Santa Claus is Coming to Town. My mom had come to see if I was really asleep and told me to go to bed. And it clicked. The lyrics fit. There were only 2 people in the world who knew when I was sleeping and when I was being bad or good. So I jumped out of bed and proclaimed to her, "You're Santa!" My dad, standing behind her, chuckled. He knew the jig was up. Story 25. My dad's employer hosted a Christmas party for employees and their families, which featured an appearance by Santa Claus himself. Santa turned out to be a different race than what I had always been led to believe. It got me thinking. Story 26. What do you mean he is not real? I met him once. It was a great memory, marred only by the fact that my dad could not even be bothered to show up and share that moment with me. Story 27. I never believed in Santa, ironically because of my Catholic fundamentalist upbringing. It made me a very skeptical and questioning child. I wanted to, though, because the kids around me seemed really happy about believing in it. So I decided to leave cookies out one night just to be sure, and my mom later said that my dad ate them when he got up for work. They are not from the United States, so the tradition wasn't really in our culture anyway. Story 28. I literally never believed in Santa Claus. I was a very rational child and knew how to do long division by the time I was 4. Every house in the world with children divided by 24 hours did not add up. Apparently, a neighbor caught me explaining this to an older child when I was 4, and they broke the news to my parents. My parents were like, "Yeah, we've had a feeling she was just playing along." Story 29. I was around 4, and my 6-year-old sister dragged me into the lounge where my mom was putting out presents under the tree and basically said, "See, Santa's not real." Story 30. At 6, I had a wealthy friend, And there is no way that brat kid would have been given all that expensive stuff by the same Santa that gave me adult-sized socks. Story 31. Because I'm a terrible snoop. Around 8 or 9 years old, I went looking for presents in my parents' closet and found a couple of Super Nintendo games, Clay Fighter and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighter, to be exact. Christmas morning, I opened gifts from Santa, and wouldn't you know it, Story 32, we have Sinterklaas here in the Netherlands, the figure Santa Claus is based upon. I honestly don't remember anything about finding out the truth about Sinterklaas. It's supposedly a big childhood trauma for a lot of people, but it must not have made much of an impression on me. My sister, who is 2 years older than me, was apparently parading the truth around the house when she wasn't supposed to, but I honestly can't remember anything about that myself. It just doesn't seem to be something that had any sort of emotional impact on me. My sister was apparently in shock, though. Story 33. Even at a young age, I kind of just assumed he wasn't real. It didn't seem logical for a random guy to enter my house and leave gifts. I didn't even have a chimney, and we locked the doors at night. What, is this guy going to break and enter just to leave some cheap gifts and then leave? Yeah. No. Story 34. I heard a noise, so I went downstairs to get some water and saw my parents wrapping presents in silver wrapping paper. The next morning, I came downstairs and all of Santa's presents were in silver wrapping paper. Story 35. I can't say anything for sure, but I started thinking he wasn't real in the 5th grade when some of the bullies and other mean kids were getting more or cooler presents than me. Story 36. When my kids woke up without presents for 4 years straight, I started realizing either they had done something really bad to upset Santa or that he may not be real. It's been a tough year, but I'm dealing with it and ready for my role as Santa this year. Story 37. I recognized that the wrapping paper under my grandma's Christmas tree was the same design and color as the wrapping paper I had seen in a kitchen drawer at home, and I kind of just put 2 and 2 together. Story 38. Santa never visited my house during Christmas. We celebrate a different holiday, the actual St. Nicholas, on December 5th. That's what the kids grow up with here. Story 39. My daughter was informed he's not real this year. She's 11, by kids at school. She had her suspicions apparently. Honestly, though, that hurts more than me finding out as a kid. Story 40. When I was 6, I was looking around the shelves in the hallway closet. When I climbed up to the top one, I found my siblings and my letters to Santa. As soon as I saw them, I knew that it was my parents all along. Story 41. I noticed Santa had the same handwriting as Mom and used the same wrapping paper. Also, Dad one year asked, "You don't still believe in Santa, do you?" Like, okay, Dad, message received. Story 42. I was in the car with my parents. I was 5 years old. We were going to a park I didn't want to go to. So I was being difficult and my mom said, "If you don't behave, we won't buy what you want for Christmas." I replied, "Ha, that means you're buying my gifts." I knew it, Santa doesn't exist. They looked at each other in silence and said, "Yeah, you're right." I mean, before that, it was already suspicious because my parents would not wait for the 25th to give me my presents. They were like, "Oh, Santa is early." And I figured out I was the only kid in my school whose Santa was early. Story 43. I am an artist and have been drawing since I was a little girl. I asked my parents how Santa came into our house since we did not have a chimney or fireplace, and my parents said he comes through the doors or windows. I wanted to make Santa a drawing to hang on the door for him to take on his way out, and the next day I saw it still taped to the door. Story 44. Not me, but a friend of mine's family could not afford to do Christmas one year, and that was how they found out. They were still expecting presents from Santa and were pretty bummed when they woke up to nothing. Story 45. 3-year-old me wanted a Barbie. Aspiring parents bought 3-year-old me gold jewelry, which then had to be returned as it was only 9 carat. Santa died twice that day. Story 46. Stayed up all night for Santa, but he never came. In the morning, my parents had Christmas presents for us, claiming they were left by Santa, which wasn't true because I stayed up waiting for him. I was 10 years old. Story 47. My grandpa would dress up as Santa, so really he did exist. I don't know, I never really did, I don't think. From consciously thinking back, as far as my memory sparingly exists, I'm like 8 or 7, it was always Santa written on the tag for fun or playing it up for other kids. But I always knew it was my parents or whoever. My dad still puts it on my presents to this day, and I'm 30. It just was never a thing really for my family. Story 48. Same day I found out Jesus didn't have superpowers at age 9. Surprisingly, I always expected adults to all secretly agree that God was like Santa, just a lie for kids. Turns out it isn't. Billions of people really believe in God. Story 49. Because we had the Santa Claus and the Schmunzli, the Italians had a weird witch and the Spanish had the three saints. It's rather easy accepting Santa as a religious tradition. If not, a day's travel away, those traditions are completely different. Story 50. I didn't grow up in a part of the world that celebrated Christmas seriously. I don't think I was ever under the impression that Santa was real, just a silly character that would appear on everything during the Christmas holidays. I don't think living in houses without chimneys helped either, and my parents were always upfront with the fact that they were the ones buying my presents.